Welcome everyone to Nice Day for Fishing, where you fish peacefully, going deeper and deeper, exploring the world, befriending the villagers, enter the Shadow Realm, defeat the Dark Lord and his skeletal goons, all while repairing your village to its former glory. Please consider subscribing and enjoy the video. This is Balin the Fisherman. He lives in Honeywood, along with Greg the Garlic Farmer, who gives quests to the players. Hey Balin.
Nice day for fishing, ain't it?
It sure is, Balin. Also, here is Bodger, who upgrades the players' gear and such, along with the great sorcerer Baradun, who, after completing the crappy low-level quests, begins the main campaign. He's also working on a new story for the surrounding players to enjoy, involving the chest of abandoned souls. Do you see behind that well, though, there are two silly little muggers, Charles and Bernard, here to steal it. They ran up, opening the chest, and what is this? They ran away, Baradun followed suit, and one by one all the players began to disconnect. Only Balin was left to take the impact. No longer a lowly fishing NPC, I had become Balin. The players had not returned, but I now had the ability to accept Greg's quests for garlic, pick them and hand them over myself. We were quite unsure of our situation, but I was the only one able to accept a quest, so fishing up Greg's dinner. Done so by attacking a herring. I was told to upgrade my rod at Bodger's store. He would gladly, but he had lost his hammer. On the way to the forest, I talked to the guard, realized it wasn't here, threw my line in the well and found it at the bottom. Hoping this wouldn't become a reoccurring bit, I gave it back. He vowed to keep it safe, upgrading my rod. It's time to test it. Baradun had arrived. He was confused at Balin's new powers, but there were no players, so he gave me the quest to catch the mysterious fish at the bottom of the lake. Dropping my line down, I spam attacked it, but my line broke. Alright, so I can only attack when it's facing me, so this time I managed to land it and I leveled up. Things were looking up. Baradun cast a spell on it and the fish rose up and blew up, revealing the Dark Lord Yazalden. Darkness incarnate, the Lord of the depths of the sea. We had freed him from his eternal prison. I was the only adventurer here. It was up to me. I attacked him, but to no avail, and with one small spell, I was defeated. When I awoke, Honeywood had been destroyed. Luckily, Baradun had managed to drive the Dark Lord away in an epic fight that I had missed. Well, I didn't want to see it. Fred was sick, so giving him some extra strong garlic, I was now tasked with finding Bodger's hammer again. It had been lost in the battle. Well, I have an idea. It was in the well again. Bodger was happy, but starvation was setting in. So throwing in my line, I caught 3 Honeywood herrings for the townspeople to consume before learning something huge. Apparently, Baradun had followed the Dark Lord as it escaped across the lake, and wanting to help repair this world, I picked up some scrap wood from the surroundings, handing them to Bodger, who crafted a ship which I could ride across the lake on. I found Baradun on the opposite bank, who exclaimed how epic his battle was against the Dark Lord that I had missed. He had run out of mana to pursue him though, so my job as the protagonist of the story was to feed him some fish. Said fish were getting smarter though, as they had learned how to retaliate. Simply blocking still allowed me to secure the 3 catches and handing them over. I was told that for further investigation, 3 carps were needed, and Baradun was certainly not going to catch them himself. At the very least, this stood as further practice for me to block the fish's attacks. That was until Baradun revealed our next target was a snake fish, as they were deeper and thus held dark energy from the Lord Yazalden himself. He taught me a spell that could repair my rod instantly, and apprehensive at the thought of a fish who could force the use of such powers, I sunk my line in, hooking the elusive snake fish. Attacking aggressively, I blocked it as it began to slash at my line. It appeared to be a dangerous situation, so I cast the spell and continued my barrage until finally I had landed the fish. 2 stars. By the way, worth $3. Next on Baradun's to-do list was recover his magical supplies, which had been dropped in the lake by the same-day delivery service. I couldn't hook it though, so receiving a magnetic rod attachment, I pulled it out of the water, allowing him to blast away a boulder that had been blocking our path. Behind it, we found a peculiar scene involving Eugene, the hat salesman, having been kidnapped by a goblin. Now, this situation could have been easily resolved by a flick of Baradun's wrist, but unfortunately, he is low on mana, so we'll have to get HR involved. The goblin explained the ransom as a Vertorhan trout, just a single fish sinking my line deeper. I could see it right there, but my line was too short. Bodger's help was required, so asking him about it, no problem, he said, but he had lost his hammer again. Let me guess where it is. Taking it out of the well, he happily upgraded my line, followed by Baradun teaching me an offensive spell this time. I was ready to drop my line back in, locate the fish, and begin the fight. It was easy though. Clicking block at the right moments to perfectly parry and using the shields, I was able to land it, and giving it to the goblin, he graciously set Eugene free. Things were looking up. Everyone was safe and crossing the lake. What's this? Suddenly, third off the fierce, a great dragon appeared. I needed to defeat this boss to pass, so hooking it, swallowing my fear, we began fighting, spamming attacks while simultaneously blocking the incoming barrage of ammunition. Using my heal spell in precarious situations, I entered stage 3, just holding block to protect from these incoming quick attacks. I was on 5 health remaining when finally I came out victorious. Happily returning Eugene to his humble abode, I chatted with Greg, who said he needed some compost for his worm farm, specifically a picky pike. They were found within the range of my rod, so hooking one, I was able to consume an item mid-fight, a stamina potion, allowing for the overuse of my spells and my eventual victory over the sea creature. Landing the 2 remaining pike he had asked for, I was thanked and let know that my new type of bait would be available soon. Now that sounded cool, but I had more important things on my mind. This guard said he would trade his large jump sandals for a legendary chest plate. Assessing the situation, there was screaming coming from deeper in the forest, and yes, I cannot make this jump. Bodger could help with the chest plate, but he had recently dropped his last one in the lake. Truly the most intelligent Bodger activity, and although it did take a while of fishing in random spots, I was able to lift the rusty thing out of the water and proudly hand it over. Turns out that was garbage from the lake bed, but good enough to morph into somewhat of a chest plate shape, and giving it to the guard, he fell for the prank, and I received the sandals. I could now traverse the forest easily, meeting a woodcutter deep in, who planned to chop this large tree to get us over this hill to get to... Are those the muggers? And a woman in a cage. All he needed was a gilded axe. Luckily for me, fruit vendor Fred exclaimed he had seen an axe head in the lake. Fred is certainly a credible source, so doing a little more exploration, I found it. But it's a little, far away. My magnet could not attract it. Well, in times of adversity, one would call upon the mighty god of the seas. So that's what I did, meeting Thydon, who said to talk to his statue on the beach, and wandering over, there it was. He said he would allow me to take control of the currents, but first I needed to sacrifice one of every fish in the shallow waters. Here, we must learn from the teachings of our ancient ancestors. If a deity asks us to make a sacrifice, that's what we do. I caught one of every fish, including a grouper which ate pine cones from the beach, handing them over sufficiently enough to warrant some convenient currents and an introduction to the fish collection. The more fish you have, the more spells you get, but that doesn't matter. Sinking again, I brought up the axe head, and finally, needing a handle, I brought it up with Bodger. He said, alright, easy enough, all I needed was some leather and schmagen steel. According to the map, they were at the beach, so throwing in my line there, these strange pigfish were a source of leather, apparently. So landing enough, I also gathered the steel dotting the bottom of the ocean, and with everything ticked off, I returned to Honeywood and handed them over, but Bodger had lost his hammer again. My favorite reoccurring gag. I gave it back and received the gilded axe in return. Finally, it was time to rescue the muggers and caged woman, so giving it to the woodchopper, he made a path upwards, revealing to me and Baradin that a group of orcs were the perpetrators. They were far too dangerous to attack right now, and the recommended next step, according to Fred, was to make perfume with a pink fish which would drive them out. Alright, I guess after seeing Greg's worm farm was efficient enough to spread them everywhere, I spent an unfortunate amount of time searching for the unnaturally pigmented sea creature. I eventually caught enough and returned to my goat Fred. He made some perfume using them, which me and Baradin threw down to the kidnappers, driving them out as expected. Great work. Baradin also made his leave. Portal away! I untied the muggers and uncaged the woman, a villager, it seemed, by the name of Willow. The muggers made their escape too, so bringing her back to Honeywood, she decided to stay here, but Baradin said there was someone drowning far out in the ocean. Man's mana must be really damn low, so the responsibility once again landed on me. One issue though, I can't reach them. Baradin suggested building a boat, which, thanks man. You know what? I appreciate it. I appreciate your help, man. You do you, man. You do you. I diligently grabbed the required resources from the woods, exploring further, but being stopped by a small river. We had no time though, especially not to retrieve Bodger's hammer, so giving him the resources, Bodger completed the ship in record time and sailing at full speed across the vast ocean, I found the ship off which the man had toppled. The muggers were here for some reason mugging the ship, but little to my concern. I dropped my magnet down a small hole and utilizing the currents, I located the poor man and picked him up, returning to the surface. He needed medical attention immediately, but the muggers wouldn't let us past unless we got them some shiny treasure. Luckily, some conveniently placed shells made this mission quite easy, and handing some over, we were free to go. Actually, Baradin wants some nice fish for brain power. This guy is starting to piss me off. Still, I persevered and caught all that was required, finally arriving at Honeywood and examining the night in more detail. A healing elixir was apparently needed, made with certain fish that held healing properties. First up, a Vikendi catfish, a regular in the lake that would bite down on absolutely anything. Next up was the magic carp, found in the ocean, and if you say its name quickly, legend has it, Nintendo will burn down your development studio. Finally, it was the Southwind anchovy, which after some exploration I found, hiding away in a small cave. This was by far the most difficult catch, but with the life of this poor knight on my hands, I let it go once, but dove back in straight away, hooking the twat and bringing it to the surface. Triumphantly, Baradin received all the goods, and cooking up the potion, our knight friend was left to heal. You see, in the meantime, we had realized the mayor of the town was missing. Before even Honeywood was destroyed, he'd headed out to collect oysters. So making my way to the beach, I found the goofball with no oysters to show for himself at all. Apparently, this responsibility also landed on me. So getting to work, I realized just how difficult these dull-witted shellfish were to catch. Still, I am a primate with cognitive abilities. So along with the 5-star oyster, I landed all that was required and gave them to the mayor, who now had something else to attend to, apparently. So in the meantime, the light god of the seas was requesting I sacrifice every fish from the coral reef area of the ocean. Positive, a groundbreaking reward awaited me. I caught a leatherfish, an oyster, a turbot for the first time, a 5-star tuna, and finally a magikarp, which for legal reasons does not evolve into Gyarados. In return, Thydon opened one of the clams, giving me the rage spell, then navigating my line down, I caught from within it the wiggle fin, which could attract fish towards the bait. A grand discovery indeed. Anyway, it's time to bring the mayor home. He was quite confused upon seeing his entire town destroyed, which may speak volumes to his involvement in its economic development over the years. He wants soup. By the way, this guy also pisses me off. Still fishing for him, I used the wiggle fin, which was so convenient, and handing them over, he gave me a substantial sum of monetary reward. My view of the mayor is quickly changing. I used these funds on a nice hat, talking to the knight who had now awoken, who explained that Willow was the runaway princess of his land, and they needed to leave right now. She begrudgingly accepted on the condition that I escorted them. Through the forest we walked, getting into a small disagreement by the pond, which heated up until the knight exposed that he was secretly a general for the Dark Lord Yazalden. He ripped the princess into the air, so throwing my line, I began to pull her back to shore, all while I tried to block the incoming attacks from the evil knight turned octopus's mouth. It was futile, though I had little health compared to its, and the massive anchor attack would stun me, ending in my eventual demise. I wouldn't give up though. Changing my hat, I attacked again, but who was I kidding? I am nothing compared to the Dark Lord. I was defeated. I promise I'll be back, princess. It was time for my training arc. Leveling up being my main goal, I accepted the mayor's quest to build him a temporary home, purchasing a stronger fishing pole from Bodger, and got to work fishing away in the lake for experience. Quickly I reached level 15, but this wasn't good enough. Running past the goblin and onto the beach, I specifically targeted the larger, more experience-heavy fish, landing shark after shark, and at long last achieved level 16. I was stronger and more confident than ever, so I proudly re-entered the forest and challenged the general once again. Spamming attacks again, I was focused on not taking huge damage, and although I was stunned and he got some free shots in, I forced stage 2 with little loss. Here, his stun was replaced by a shield that could buff himself, but using my new offensive spell, I was able to arrive at stage 3 with ease once again. He was getting desperate, swinging his sword wildly, causing me to bleed, but still persevering, I was able to take him down. Willow was safe, and deciding to return to Honeywood, I accompanied her back, hearing she also wanted a home. Look, I'm no woodcutter though, but I do know someone who is. And after discovering I could cross the river in the general's helmet and finding a massive rock blocking the path, I met with the woodcutter himself. He said sure he could make her a house in exchange for wood and stone. Remembering some of those in the lake, I fished enough of both resources, spotting a fancy looking chest that my line length barred me from accessing. Still, Willow now had a nice tent to reside in, from which she was selling rings with various buffs. I purchased one for the good of the local economy and decided that next was the mayor's house. The collection of the same basic resources ensued, handing them all over to him, and in response being told to catch a bunch of fish to secure resources. The mayor is back to pissing me off, and Baradin saying we needed to explore the knight's ship for clues on the Dark Lord. I was happy with this excuse to avoid doing that bum's quest, arriving and fishing up some sand dollar before pulling up the anchor of the great vessel to utilize on my fishing rod, increasing its line length by a significant portion. We could now explore the deeper waters, but I guess we can get the mayor's things first. I fished in the ocean, then in the lake before handing everything over. You know, at the very least, he pays well, but it's time to go. deeper. Past all the fish, my trusty line went before realizing a very different issue. I couldn't see anything down here. Consulting Baradon, he said I needed a glowing hook made of magic crystals found in the cave. Excited to finally explore the large cave to the east of the forest, I arrived. I realized it was the wrong cave. Turns out it was a cave under the ocean, so sinking, I found an entrance of sorts, utilizing the currents well to navigate to the end, picking up the chest and apprehensively pulling it up. I got a ring of endurance. Alright, not quite a magic crystal, so going deeper now, I came across a real mine entrance with much more punishing currents, but still arriving at the end, I found an old lantern, which, you know what? Close enough. Baradon did not think so, but begrudgingly telling me to return to Honeywood. We asked Bodger to craft me a glowing hook, but he'd lost his hammer. And where was it? It was in the well. Returning it, I received the lantern hook, now attached to the end of my rod. In other news, I chatted with the woodchopper, who could now upgrade the infrastructure of the town, and to the mayor, who wanted to make a sacrifice to the gods. These missions had always ended well for me, so more important than exploring the depths with the new hook. So locking in, I was able to land the 3 shellfishes and the magic carp he wanted, handing them over in return for 250 gold. Now, just before I checked my fish collection, which was missing a single entry from the Shadow Lake, and wanting to change this fact, I sunk to the bottom with the worm on the hook, bringing the Gar of Gradok to the surface, and upon sacrificing it, I was rewarded with the Wild Swing spell. In a pathetic attempt to complete the Oceans collection too, I tried for a shrimp which wanted a mysterious fruit of some sort, forcing me to finally confront the dark depths of the ocean. It was moody down here with jellyfish and snakes, discovering a pipe-leaking noxious green goop into the surrounding waters. We needed to stop it on the way, hooking an anglerfish, which I actually managed to land by a hair, chatting with Baradon, who explained the goop was the work of the Dark Lord himself. The plan is, Baradon needed a wave whisperer to think of one. This man's frontal lobe relies suspiciously on delicacies from the seas. He was happier now though, revealing our plan to get a better lantern so we could see deeper underwater in order to uncover the source of the goop. Sounds good. First, catching a fish for the collection and returning to Honeywood, I talked to Big Fred, who explained these magic light crystals were in the mines past the forest. Look, it's blocked though, why even bother? An earthquake had occurred. Buying a new hat and trying to ignore the incomprehensibly convenient timing, I made my way over. It was indeed now open, and entering carefully, it was dark and moody. I explored for some while, finding a long passage where, at the end, sat the 2 muggers and the light crystal I had been searching for. They bargained some ancient relics in return for the crystal, so I got straight to work finding a strange skeleton fish and hooking the first relic. I need 5 though, and this pond is quite empty. As it turned out, the rest were scattered around the mines, so diligently collecting them, I handed them over, receiving the beautiful crystal in return. Now, simply to hand it over to Baradon, who had no idea on how to infuse it into my rod. Asking around, Willow informed us a massive garlic clove could be used, so asking Greg for one, he said alright, but first he wanted his bobo seeds back, which had been stolen by the muggers, who, after talking to Eugene and discovering his infested basement issue, spotted them cowering at the bottom. Now, of course, I am a great guy, and catching both spiders, I freed the muggers, who handed back the bobo seeds they had stolen, rightfully returned to Greg. He was thankful, officially inviting us to the Garlic Festival happening in the indiscreet future. Yeah, Greg, I appreciate it. We got the big garlic too, but unfortunately, Baradon informed us we needed some steel to make the infusion permanent, and that Bodger may be selling some. I am always one step ahead though, and the well is empty. Alright, talking to Bodger, he said he recently sold his last sentimental steel, but they had actually dropped some sentimental spoons into the ocean. Alright, 3 spoons is 1 bar, so catching all 3 of the utensils along with the jellyfish, I handed them over to Bodger, who gracefully repaid me with the sentimental steel. No hammer too. Lastly, he wanted a nice fish for lunch, so catching one for him, he had lost his hammer. And it's in the well. Returning it, I gave the steel and garlic to Baradon, who enchanted it well. Finally, it was time to explore the depths. And what's more, Greg's bobo seeds had grown, bearing 3 beautiful bobo fruits for bait. It was the depths of the lake, apparently, that we were exploring next, and descending once again, we discovered the continuation of the green goop. Now, Baradon wanted some various fish, so catching a big meat shield creature, and returning to the depths, I arrived at the massive goop area. It was seeping into the surroundings, corrupting the fish, which I bought brought up for further investigation. Unfortunately turning out to be a difficult task, but landing it and catching the rest that was required, we arrived at the next step. This primarily involved research of the goop, needing 4 of the same species, half corrupt and half not. They were found relatively deep in the ocean, and catching one of the wolf fish, I next hooked a mahi-mahi accidentally, but still bringing it up to the surface, I spotted the fully corrupted wolf fish and landed enough for further examination. Returning to land, I talked to the statue, unlocking the scale breaker spell. I also noticed I was only missing the shrimp from here, so heading back out, I threw in my line with the bobo fruit attached, hooking the shy shrimp and landing it, upgrading my main damage spell. There was certainly some progress being made here. Enough fluffing about though, it was time to finally grab some goop and investigate it directly. Unfortunately, I'm not big on that whole thinking stuff, and arriving at the goop, I realized I forgot the magnet. Surely this won't happen again. Still eventually securing it, I handed the stuff to Baradun, who explained the requirement of pure crystals for the next step. Look, I'm just saying, this may explain his demeanor. Arriving at the caves where he said they were located, we needed another boat to reach them. Baradun's suggestion? Use a minecart with undead fish wheels. I went back to the main cave opening searching for a minecart, and I'm just saying, these pure crystals may not be being used for examination purposes. Turned out the minecart was underwater, so bringing it up, step 2 involved getting some wheels, and he wanted 4 skeleton fish. Curious on where this could lead, I hooked them all and handed them over, witnessing my new mode of transport, a floating buoyancy provided by 4 live undead fish. Thank you, Pookie Baradun. Exploring the new undead caves lake, my goal was pure crystals from the crystal grotto, but the entrance to which was blocked by a massive sea of ghost fish, which wouldn't allow my hook to pass. Also, I caught a cod zombie, like a zombie cod. Baradun had no potential solution for the fish sea, so returning home, I stopped to wonder what lay above this platform that I couldn't reach. Anyway, I knew Fred could help me in this instance, and he let me know the ancient sunken ruins were being protected by the ghost fish. More importantly, I needed the divine light to drive them away. Alright, asking Willow, she said the High Paladin Rondor had control over the divine light. It had kind of lost me. So to clean my palate, it's time to fix the town. Wood and stone were first on the agenda, so collecting them from the lake bottom, I realized I also needed seashells for some reason, found deep in the ocean, so also getting enough I could finally upgrade. Greg's store, now a tent rather than a burnt building, and Bodger's blacksmith. I also had enough for Fred's fish purchasing store and Eugene's hat shop, unfortunately running out of resources when it came to the mayor's house. Now, speaking of the mayor, his next quest involved selling some fish to a merchant in return for what looks like a magic staff. I really want that, and ignoring the fact that the mayor is literally drop shipping, I quickly caught everything that was required and handed them over, receiving the bone caller's rod, which, although lost me some strength, increased the strength of all my spells by 50%. I equipped it, of course, but I guess it's finally time to speak to the Paladin Rondor, so hopping off the boat, he explained he could not give me it directly, but instead could enchant my glowing garlic with the divine light. First though, he wanted an eel and shrimp for a nice meal. I don't think he understands the gravity of the situation. We need to defeat the Dark Lord. I feel like if we had everyone on the same page here, things would be moving a whole lot faster. But still, I caught the shrimps, searching for the eel for some time before realizing it resided in the lake. Migrating over and quickly hooking it, I handed everything over in anticipation. Finally, never mind. I now need to recover a special gem to help with the infusion, probably in a shipwreck. Why did Mans not tell me this before? Nevertheless, I eventually located said shipwreck, but once again, I found the gem in a position I had no way of reaching. Luckily, my goat, the light sea god, was once again here to help on the simple condition I sacrificed every fish from the shallow undead mines. Alright, making my way over, I caught a skeleton fish, as well as another cod zombie, before aiming for the vampire crab, who, ironically, was a fan of garlic. Also, I can't tell when it's running away or not, because the sprite is symmetrical. Locking in though, I managed to land the thing, and with little effort, I secured the remaining fish, returning to the beach. Upon handing them all over, the god opened up the second of the 3 clams, giving me a new spell, then once again lifting out my beautiful clam treasure, turning out to be the Angling Bug 2000, which incomprehensibly allowed free movement through water. No longer having to use unreliable currents to traverse, I easily obtained the Paladin gem, then handed it over over, watching in apprehension as I received my garlic back, glowing with the divine light, the one and only holy garlic. Fully prepared now, it was time to take on the ghost fish. Lowering my hook, they suddenly convulged into a horde, appearing in front of me as a boss. Quickly, I spammed my offensive spells until I had run out of energy, blocking the fish flying at me with ease and eventually arriving at stage 2. Their special attack, regardless of my parry, would reduce my offensive power to 0, but nevertheless, after it wore off, I continued the onslaught, forcing the third and final stage. It was a massive storm of ghost fish now, with endless attacks and weakening blows, but with my powerful spells, I defeated them. A spectral ring. Nice. Still, I like my spells, so equipping the endurance ring instead, I could at long last delve deeper and enter the crystal grotto. Below sat a pool of lava, too hot to enter, from which I snagged a fish, which quickly broke my line. There were crystals down here, so taking one up, it was the incorrect one, apparently. And furthering my exploration, I eventually located the pure crystal shard down a small corridor, handing it indubitably to Baradun. It's time to take care of the ooze. Portal away! I got back eventually, Baradun claiming he'd already cleared the water of the ooze, and it was now my job to explore the previously corrupted areas for any special artifacts. There was a single chest lying down here next to the pipe, undoubtedly the chest of abandoned souls. This was a huge hint on returning the players to this world, so returning to the shore, me and Baradun apprehensively opened it. Oh no, it was the Dark Lord. The chest, stolen by Yazalden, contained the 3 remnants able to fix this world, which he distributed amongst his skeletal goons, then corrupted the world once again. When I came to, the entire lake had been turned into goop. My boats had been dissolved and the water was no longer fishable. The skies had darkened. It wasn't looking good. More importantly though, Greg was preparing for the garlic festival. He needed a nice dark place to house the garlic so they wouldn't spoil, and knowing the perfect place, I brought him to the undead cave, placing the garlic in the coldest spot. All was good, but he had spotted some certain bubbles in the nearby water. Can you see that there's a creature down there for sure? Throwing down my hook, it was a strange reptile by the name of Murgle, previously a slave of the Dark Lord who had been banished from his home by Yazalden. Now, he definitely had some important information in him, so deciding to befriend the creature, I got to work fishing up the Emerald Emperor he wanted so badly. Unfortunately, this was an absolute tank of a fish. However many times I attacked it, it would just turn around and do even more damage back at me. Failing the first attempt along with my second attempt, and not having been even remotely close, I decided to return to Honeywood and revamp the strategy. This consisted of purchasing a new hat from Eugene and a new rod from Bodger, and significantly stronger now, I headed back with a swagger in my step. Dropping in my line again, I spent some time exploring the crystal grotto before hooking the Emperor again, playing absolutely perfectly, getting enough attacks in and perfectly parrying almost all of the retaliations, but still ended up losing it. The second attempt also followed a familiar pattern of being bested by a fish. Alright, you win. I'm now going to use items to force my victory, getting the next Emperor weak. As soon as I was hit hard, I took a stamina potion and healed myself, ending in me successfully landing it. 4 stars to 520 weight. Unfortunately for the next fish, I was locked in now and easily brought it to the surface, completing the Murgle's dinner. He happily accepted my offering and followed me back to Honeywood. This was a little surprising for Baradun, but after he came to terms with our little mole, we listened in to the juicy information. Alright, he had heard that an aggregate construct of the 4 elements will clear the waters. At least Baradun seemed to understand. The air element was up first, presumably found past this ledge, which I couldn't reach. The woodchopper unfortunately couldn't help with my predicament, so I could just ask the good old reliable Fred, whose wife, sick of his goofy stories, made up something about the loot rat who lived in the trees and would give me the highest jumping shoes ever. She was taking the piss, obviously, but miraculously, heading through the forest, I found myself face to face with none other than the loot rat, and although he was suspiciously Fred-shaped, I was happy to accept Sandy's sandals from him free of charge at great financial burden to Fred the shopkeeper. No matter though, it was time to climb the tree of life. It was very windy up here, a series of small and precarious canopies peeking above the sea of forest below, where small mushrooms would grow, along with the occasional healthy apple, and where the unpredictable gusts of wind would push you back down to the surface. Still, I secured the tree of life leaf, the air element element was complete. Next came earth, and the requirement was simply a bunch of crystals found in the crystal grotto. Lowering my line, I was harassed by the local fauna, picking up the raw crystal that I needed, along with realizing that one of the remaining was a live fish made of these gems. Hooking and bringing up the ruby ronquill, I explored further, eventually locating the final gemstone before realizing I'd forgotten the magnet. Returning efficiently and securing it, earth completed. Hooray! Bowden's next step was water. Our lake was mucky though, so talking to Willow instead, she explained her ability to brew up some super watery water for us, only requiring a couple of ingredients from the cave. Willow is truly who we wish Bowden was. Arriving at the undead lake, I found and hooked the first piece of the recipe, an indigo flask. Last but not least was 3 freaky little fish goldfish of Rahul. Quite a difficult task, and I don't like looking at them. But still, enough in my pockets, I returned triumphantly. Willow brewed up the aqueous water, and finally we were onto fire. Bowden once again had no idea, so consulting Bodger, he suggested the lava core, the area below the crystal grotto, even offering to upgrade my line to withstand such temperatures. He needed a few ingredients though, notably 3 teeth of Tyrallian's dragon, commonly found, I found, amongst the whimsical heights of the Tree of Life. I kept falling off, like repeatedly. Luckily, the required amount had been secured, so returning home, I handed them to Bodger, who had lost his... Alright, let's have a quick think on where it could be. That's right, in the well. Upon returning it, I had gotten the obsidian line though, and it's time to get some fire fish. Lowering my line carefully, I was on a reconnaissance mission, if you will, scouting out the fish that I needed to catch, along with some sea creatures that wanted fairies as bait. It's okay, in that case, to ignore them for now, and heading back down with some appropriate bait, I caught all of the fire fish that I needed and quickly went back to Bowden, who magically combined all of the aggregate constructs to build the ultimate crystal, throwing it into the lake, completely clearing it of all corruption. Hooray, it's back to normal, except for the fact that all of my boats had still been dissolved. Well, step 1, as a preventative measure, we needed corrupt fish glands on the ships, of which I caught a satisfactory amount of before heading to the forest to collect wood and finally hand everything over to Bodger. Actually, before that, check the well, which is currently empty. Gave everything to Bodger. He confesses he lost his axe. Check the well, and it's appeared down there. Truly mysterious. Still, all of my ships were reconstructed, and that means it's time to defeat the Dark Lord's first minion. Traveling over with Bowden, it lived in the deepest parts of the seas, in a place called the Ocean's Graveyard. We eventually arrived, and there it was, the Lich, protecting the first part of the Forbidden Scroll. Bowden, realizing the danger, taught me one last burning spell before leaving it to me. I was unaware of its attack patterns and struggled to continue parrying each attack. Still, using my spells tactically, I arrived at the second stage, caught off guard by a series of attacks that left me with 7 health, and with my heal unavailable, I was defeated. My second attempt was much the same, and although I once again arrived at stage 2, its offensive patterns were unpredictable, and the large attacks were too hard for me to parry. It was time for a little recuperating. This consisted of making my return to Honeywood, picking some garlic and purchasing a couple of stamina potions. That's right, I was all in. This time, sailing out into the ocean, I would come out victorious. The first stage was relatively easy, taking a healthy apple for passive health regeneration, forcing the second stage and taking stamina potions to keep my offensive spells on cooldown. Dealing so much damage, stage 3 arrived in no time at all. This was when I began choking, missing the majority of the parries, but still, through the power of the stamina potion, I was able to end up the victor. My first part of the Forbidden Scroll. And you know what that means? It's time to go deeper. Unfortunately, my rod was too short to do that currently, and my line could be upgraded using some obsidian ox eye fish. According to Fred, they liked fairies though, which could be found where there was no light. I had a small hunch that tiny clue pointed towards the mines, and arriving, I was proven very much correct. But wait, Fred had just attached another fish to the quest line, a lava core catfish just for his own dinner or something. Sure, it was inconvenient, but surely it wouldn't be too hard, right? It was massive, with a massive health pool and a large damage output. There was no way I was bringing this thing to the surface. Each time it would fight back, it would add corrosion to my defense, just stacking my debuff until I had no chance of survival. This did give me an idea though. If I constantly consumed peace blooms, which added immunity to status effects for a duration, I could render its entire offensive plan useless. I must say, this was a brilliant plan, and although I lost half my health from pulling a single time during its offensive mode, I managed to land it and was certainly suddenly proud of myself. 707 weight, by the way. Fred had just thrown it in there too, as well. I had no reason to get it. Still, it was now time to get the obsidian oxide, and trusting the process on how this could possibly increase my rod strength, I returned the thing to the surface, these being significantly easier to land than the catfish. Done and dusted. It was finally time to upgrade my rod, so quickly checking the well, it was empty, and talking to Bodger, apparently these fish were too foreign for him to work with, and he required one last special tool, found apparently in a shipwreck in the ocean's graveyard. I guess I can do that, first grabbing some fossils since I was in the area, before slowly entering the spooky area. The fish down here are as freaky as they get. This strange snake covered in tendrils, and this fish with 10 eyes stood out, so grabbing the tool, I quickly made my escape. The only thing that remained on the checklist was one single fish from down there. Hooking the Dolderoth Dreadscale, the first fight was going well, until of course, I blinked and pulled like 2 times in the defense mode, then made a single misclick, reducing my health to a near 0. And I just let that one go. Alright, attempt 2 though. This was going significantly less smoothly, and once again clicking attack instead of block, dealing an unfortunate amount of damage and forcing another reset. Okay, my current biggest enemy was myself, so beginning attempt 3 on edge, I hooked the thing, parrying perfectly, but being subjected to his heavy bleeding attack. I then attacked once in the defense mode, perfectly parried all the other attacks and retaliated to the best of my abilities, but still lost. This fish is harder than the lich. The full parry still does so much damage, and I can't lie, I played this absolutely perfectly, parrying each and every attack, shooting my offensive spells, and even taking a mushroom to rid my bleeding. Once again, parrying each of the attacks, not missing a single one, taking another item to stop the bleeding, but still losing. I played perfectly and still lost. May I state, this is quite detrimental game design. Still, I may just be bad, so giving this offensive demon of a fish one more try, I refused to use my precious items on a lowly single fish and lost disastrously. This sucks. It's time to level up, I guess. Arriving at the lake with my newly upgraded rod, I made my way to the bottom, discovering what seemed to be a sea of acid or slime or something at the bottom of a canyon. So just hooking the fish down here, I watched as they shot to the surface, quickly checking with the collection to see what creatures I was missing and making sure to target them, leveling up once and returning with a different bait, and catching the final fauna I needed to complete the lair. Sacrificing them, I was rewarded with the bleed spell upgrade, and simply wanting to fill my collection more, I wandered over to the caves and caught one of each of the crystal grotto fish, besides the Emerald Emperor, of course, returning to the light god statue and receiving an upgrade to my scale breaker spell. Finally, the lava core awaited me, selectively bringing up the fish that I hadn't gotten before, a quick and easy process, running straight back to the beach where he upgraded my main damage spell. I was significantly stronger than before now. The collection was also looking good, and it was just about time to catch the damn graveyard fish. First though, I went to the Tree of Life and grabbed a regeneration apple, purchasing some stamina potions from Greg, which I hoped I wouldn't be forced to use. Alright, we're ready though. Throwing in my line, I hooked the twat, began reeling it upwards, but listen, I made a grave mistake of blinking at the incorrect time, resulting in missing the defense swap by a few frames, damaging my rod beyond repair. It's still winnable though, as I blinked again and lost the fight. Alright, refusing to blink now, I hooked the next victim, was subject to its diabolical acid, and was completely destroyed once again. Alright, it's item using time. Not ideal, but nevertheless, it's working. I was so close, just this one offense that I needed to block as the acid drained my health, and I lost. That was so close. I had had enough though. Enough fighting. I would simply use an effect clearing mushroom every time I got poisoned, while perfectly parrying each and every attack they sent, sucking all the life from the battle, but ending in my victory. Look, that wasn't enjoyable. It forced the use of items even though I didn't want to, completely unbalanced and frankly, a bit of a disaster. It was done though, and trudging back home, I handed these tools to Bodger, who handed me my glorious upgraded rod. Finally, we could advance into the magical sludge cave at the bottom of the lake. It was an ancient library, it seemed, with many mystical creatures, and of course, the second of the Dark Lord's goons protecting the scroll piece. Ignoring it for now, I explored the area, accidentally hooking a feathered flounder, which attacked with such speed, I was left bewildered and let it escape. Enough playing though, it was time to fight the Hydra, the final boss, until I would face the Dark Lord. Unfortunately, this was quite anticlimactic, as its attacks would spawn in and hit me in a time frame below a normal human's reaction time, decimating my health and ending in my loss. I'm off to do some side quests. This began by appearing at the ocean and deciding to catch all the damn fish in the ocean's graveyard, beginning with the freaky 10-eyed Mongolian Morbidai. This turned out significantly easier than the previous fish, so with a renewed false confidence in my abilities, I returned to the depths, exploring down a narrow passage where I found some cobblestone at the end. Down here I hooked a skull maw which also had a bleeding attack and so much more health than the previous fish. My rod was quickly snapped. Was this a one-off occurrence? I hope so. Hooking a lich fin eel, losing pathetically, and deciding to change my profession. You see, the reason there was no upgrades available in all of Honeywood was because I first needed to build them proper homes, or I could just spam eat mushrooms. The latter suggestion seeming personally more appealing, I reappeared at the ocean's graveyard, ready to eat the second I got a negative status effect. Unfortunately, this does little when their basic attack, after being perfectly parried, still does 10 damage. Still, through the power of items, I managed to land the easiest of the bunch, an eel. Maybe it really is time to hang up the rod. Alright, to upgrade the town, I needed many various resources. I started with the wood and stone, collected simply from the shallow areas of the lake. Moving on quickly, I made my way into the mines, where I gathered pure crystal from the crystal grotto, even finding the tank of corrosion, a defensive necklace. Useless to me though, so continuing my plundering, I came across the ring of better endurance. Surely a promising find, but I couldn't function without the jewel ring on, which shows when I need to block, so I carry on regardless. At some point, I found myself entering a long cave with crazy currents. Making my way with some effort to the end, I picked up the chest and excitedly brought it to the surface, discovering the Sylwyn pendant inside, an absolute offensive beast, and the charm that I would be henceforth utilizing. Not wasting any time though, I moved back to the lake for further building resources, gathering some iron ore, a dark wood jewel, and finally some slime blobs, which were found deep in the mystical library at the bottom of the lake. My final stop was the ocean, once again bringing up some fossils along with one ectoplasm, which I found being guarded by the skull maw at the ocean's graveyard. Still, I had escaped with my life and returning to Honeywood apprehensively. I first upgraded Eugene's hat store. Having already run out of resources, I returned to the ocean and gathered the remaining fossils out of the hands of any optimistic archaeologists, wandering to the caves and completing the final collection, that being of pure crystals once again. I also found a portal home available to construct, so I did, always looking for efficiency, and upgraded Greg's store along with the blacksmith. Oh my goodness, this was the correct play, and I had so many new stock to choose from. First purchasing a new rod with a lot of attack from Bodger, I decided on the gnome hat, which required a further 2,300 gold. My only goal at this point was to secure this gnome hat, so descending the lake, I arrived at the goop library and hooked a chicken fish, bringing it to the surface with little issue. This new rod may be quite nice indeed. Stupidly looking for a harder challenge now, I appeared on the ocean waves again, throwing down my line and once again being absolutely demolished. Alright, ego thoroughly returned to its rightful place. I arrived at the mines, this time simply for money and experience. Catching a catfish with significantly less effort now, I continued my efforts, leveling up once more, landing fish after fish to the point my entire inventory was filled, and positive I had enough for the hat, I sold them all at Fred's. Speaking of Fred's, I wanted to upgrade it, but I required this mysterious item. More importantly, the gnome hat had now been purchased and is in my possession. Using the gnome hat, my main goal was to find said mysterious item so I could give Fred a home. So throwing out my line and beginning my search, I quickly found a chest boarded up containing a new rod, which was unfortunately quite lackluster. I concluded that it wasn't here, so migrating to the ocean, I attempted to look around here, catching a new hat, which once again was lacking in any reason for me to wear it. My final idea was the caves. If it wasn't there, I genuinely had no idea. Lucky, I guess we'll never know, because right near the vampire crabs sat the mysterious final item. They were runes of some sort, and gathering enough, I returned home to upgrade Willow's tent into a home, deciding I needed more money now to purchase a new necklace for my collection, along with a new rod that more fitted my spell-heavy build. The first step for this grand plan was to build the mayor a home, and as I was collecting the wood and stone required, I in fact completely forgot about Fred's store. Nevertheless, Mr. Mayor now had a residence, and talking to him, his quest asked for 2 mahi-mahi and 2 jellyfish. In anticipation of my future large payout, I got to work teamwork hooking all 4 of these creatures, getting the mahi-mahi with relative ease, heading to the lake and thinking the jellyfish meant these slime blob fellas, an incorrect assumption, returning to the ocean and correcting my mistake. I was able to hand everything in and receive 350 gold. Next, he wanted ingredients for some chowder, 3 eels and some various bait, of which I could already provide. Smelling some easy money here, I caught all the eels I needed, handing them over for a further 400 gold. Things were looking up. The mayor was now planning for a town hall to be built, saying he needed materials for a chandelier he planned to hang inside. A strange man indeed, but still catching the angle of fish he wanted. I lastly needed iron ore, an unfortunate situation as they simply refused to spawn. Using my cognitive function though, I moved on in the meantime to get the other required fish from the ocean. As soon as I was done, I could return and get the iron. Truly a neurologically activated activity. Completing the quest and handing everything over, the mayor gave 500 in return, and still missing some funds, I immediately began an assignment to get ingredients for a potion requiring 2 of the impossible fish from the ocean's graveyard that had me crashing out. Without a second thought, I gave up on it, completely returning to the caves as a simple way to grind cash. Through this mind-numbing fishing grind, I managed to level up, once again fully packing my inventory and returning to Honeywood, selling it all, getting my funds to a level I was comfortable purchasing a new ring. I remembered only now about my plan to upgrade Fred's store, so I spent some time gathering iron ore, sand dollars from the beach, and strange runes from the caves before building the man a new residence. Still with some cash on hand, I also purchased a new rod, fishing around randomly when I realized the mayor was not, in fact, asking for the hard fish, just one with a similar name. This was a relief, and I happily caught everything required, accepting my 600 gold in repayment. Now that is some decent money, and hungry now for further monetary compensation, I grabbed some more iron ore and upgraded the mayor's home. All of the buildings in Honeywood were now level 2. We were officially back to before the Dark Lord had struck. So that means it's time to face the boss. First of all, a reconnaissance mission where I would simply scout out the large damage attacks, debuffs, etc., formulating a plan to peace bloom at the beginning of the second stage and spend the first stage just watching the head as it indicated when the attack was coming. Stamina potions and regeneration was also an obvious precaution, so wandering over to the Tree of Life, I grabbed another healthy apple. It was finally time. Appearing in the library, I hooked the scroll, applying debuffs and bleed, perfectly parrying each of the first head's attacks during the initial stage. Quickly arriving at the second stage, I took the peace bloom, as well as some health regeneration, blocking the attacks coming from the multiple heads. Soon, I had activated the third stage, and never having made it this far, I began to stress. Low on stamina, I took a potion, healing myself, and continuing the barrage of attacks, and amongst the chaos, they were eventually defeated. The second scroll fragment was now mine. Nice, with the goons defeated, it was apparently time to break into their secret lair. Thydon said it was very dangerous, but danger is my middle name, and first we needed a way of breaking in. Baradon, as usual, had absolutely nothing useful to contribute, so making my return to Honeywood and chatting with Greg, he expressed his excitement for the Garlic Festival and told me about a dream he had had about the Hell Drill, the parts of which were scattered in the lava core, but it was just a dream. Still, with no other leads, I made my way over and began searching, bringing up a chest with a potion inside at first, but miraculously delving through a tight passageway, finding a piece of the Hell Drill. On a roll, I located the second, found some more cobblestone that looked destructible, and finally, landing the third part, I wandered back to Honeywood and handed them to Bodger. This was his 10th time losing his hammer. I gave it back in return, getting the drill hook before excitedly returning to the undead cave. It was time to drill. Sinking through the lake, I arrived at the rocks, broke through with ease, and with that, I was entering the Dark Lord's secret lair. The fauna here was strange, and locating a soul gem, I slowly lowered into what seemed to be a labyrinth. Many twisting corridors guarded by swimming eyeballs. I found a chest which suddenly bit down on my drill, revealing itself as a mimic. Using all my spells, I weakened its blows, surprisingly landing it with ease. Returning to Baradon though, he had way better news. You see, he's talking about a new wriggler for my rod. Dreaming of further control, we talked to the Light God, who wanted every fish from the labyrinth of the Dark Lord. This was a tall order, but anticipating freer movement through the water, I landed a gloomy lantern along with a shade skipper, and hooking an eyeball guard, I managed to catch that too, landing the spectator's Gawker. There was only one fish left, and spending time searching the entire maze, I was lost. Where could it possibly be? Entering the middle large opening in the maze, I spotted it. The Elder Fish, a massive health pool which healed 1,000 points each time it attacked. Still, I was stronger, and bringing it to the surface, I excitedly made my return, accidentally accepting a quest from the mayor, sacrificing all my catch to the statue, finally opening the third clam, and inside sat the Fishing Pal 5000. Also, I upgraded my rage spell. Things were looking up. This mood infected the townsfolk too, as Greg wanted to help defend the town. He required a helmet and some skull maw for a weapon to do so, which I added to my list, the top of which sat some crabs for the mayor, which I quickly gathered, wandering down to the beach now to get some fossils. Now, this new lure wasn't actually super strong, but it simply wasn't affected by currents at all. This made it easy to find a strange item at the bottom of the ocean, bringing it up, turning out to be Greg's old helmet. The mayor also needed some fossils, so getting all that was required, I went home, receiving a Draknite ring from the mayor, deciding it was completely useless, and now wanting a two-way portal to the mines, I wandered over with the goal of securing runes, obsidian, and the soul gem at the bottom. Spending them on building up the portal, Greg lastly wanted 2 skull maw, so arriving at the beach, I lowered in my line, hooked the large fish, and began my offense. Unfortunately, it was still so hard, forcing me to use an exuberant amount of items. The bleed did so much damage, but still I managed to land it, a massive 5-star creature that was worth triple the amount of a normal fish. Why are the most expensive fish the ones I'm not going to sell? Anyways, getting the second one too, I decided I may as well complete my ocean collection now, going for one, accidentally misclicking just twice, and losing because of it. Still, I caught the Grimtooth, once again a tough fight, turning out to be another 5-star, triple the price beast. I have no need for it, but it's done. I gave all of the ocean's graveyard fish to the statue, upgrading my bleed attack in return. I was on a roll now, appearing at the lake to complete it too. I dropped down to the magical library, hooking the unicorn cod, a very difficult fish that also forced the use of many items, peace blooms and cheese particularly. Look, I don't know if it was good luck or bad, but it was also a 5-star giant. Descending again, I hooked the pistol perch, which attacked in quick succession, followed by the slimy snail, which, foreshadowing, is the bane of my existence. Finally was the slime fish, a goofy green blob, which was an easy catch, handing over everything to the light god, who upgraded my anti-defense spell, and with that, I caught every single fish in the game. Little did I know, I'd be catching a whole lot more for a future achievement. For now though, I handed the goods to Greg, whose next plan involved getting back his shovel and fish as they'd been stolen by the damn muggers. Of course, being the vigilante figure I am, I quickly located and returned them, now hearing he wanted a shield to complete his set of armor. With the drill attached, I began the descent into the lake, remembering the cobble I had found before, and breaking open a new passage in the library. Unfortunately, I got bitten by a chicken fish, which I caught purely out of spite, returning to the cave and picking up the chest, which luckily contained Greg's shield. He also wanted some uni-cod for some reason. Still a tough fight, but not going to lose. I used some items which ended in my victory. Finally, I handed everything over and received a cash prize. This also motivated Bodger to help with our protection efforts, but he had lost his hammer again. Alright, it's in the well again, dropping my line. It suddenly bit down on the hook, exposing its fangs and gigantic health pool. It was level 99 compared to my level 30. I was in a losing position. Still, with many items to use, I spammed some health regeneration, throwing spell after spell as it slowly inched upwards. Finally, I had caught Bodger's hammer, hopefully for the final time. As a reward for my efforts, I got Bodger's family heirloom, which was decent, but nothing to gawk at. Still, I was thankful and wanting to upgrade his smith again. I arrived at the caves to collect some runes and obsidian. Quickly, I had gotten enough to upgrade the blacksmith. Turns out, it's max level now, and perusing the goods for sale, I found the perfect rod. It's a damn expensive though, but look, I'm talking to Barradin. He said it's time to defeat the final boss, the Dark Lord, once and for all. Everyone in town calling out their best wishes. I'm not ready though, and I would use as much time as needed to get the perfect rod, the perfect hat, and some good jewelry. Step 1 is the rod, and knowing the mayor pays well, I accepted a quest from him, requesting some sacrificial fish for the light god. I appeared in the crystal grotto and got to work catching all of the 6 fish he was asking for and adding them over in bulk. I'm now up 1,000 gold. Next, he wanted to build something for the light god. This guy's glaze is getting a little out of control. I reluctantly gathered the rune stones and obsidian fish he had requested, giving them to him for 1,200 gold. This really wasn't helping. I needed big money and fast, so instead I decided to sell fish for money. The first part of this plan being to upgrade Fred's store again, as he would give more money as his level increased. This of course required resources, but more than happy in pursuit of riches, I collected them all from the bottom of the ocean, sand dollars, seashells, and ectoplasm alike, finishing the job in the caves where I grabbed the soul gem, returning home where I completed the upgrade. Finally, all that was ahead of me was simply sitting in the cave and fishing. And fish I did. After quite the grind, I had completely filled my inventory, returning triumphantly to sell it all, not coming close to the amount needed. Alright, time to change the method. This involved accepting quests from the mayor again. Apparently, he had a terrible dream and needed materials for a ritual to deactivate his totem. What is he talking about? He required some firefish and dread scale, both of which I collected easily, and some mushrooms as well, which, climbing the tree of life, I gathered up the required amount of. This time, I got 1,500, and hoping my payments would continue to rise, I fished in the lake for a short duration, selling them to cover the final bit, and finally purchasing the Yortol Shum Rod. Truly a grand piece of equipment. Now, step 2 was a hat, so checking out Eugene's store upgrade, I collected a large amount of resources from the cave, moving onto the beach for ectoplasm and seashells in order to complete it. I just needed the funds for the upgrade at this point, appearing at the mines and throwing in my line, knowing that selling vampire crabs was a lucrative business venture. As soon as my inventory was full, I returned, selling them, and finally purchasing Eugene's store upgrade. Slowly perusing the new product, I arrived at the Holy Hay hat for the extra stamina, once again quite expensive. So first I would complete the mayor's order. This involved catching some grim tooth and the strange snake fishes from the bottom of the ocean, giving them in return for 1,800 gold. This was an underwhelming prize, seeing as a single fish out of the 6 provided was market valued at 1,000. Assuming that this was a one-off occurrence, he next wanted a bunch of slime creatures from the bottom of the lake, and hoping for a grand monetary reward, I got to work hooking 3 slime fish and 3 slimy little snails, along with 2 slime balls, handing them over and getting a new necklace. I do not need this. Alright, a bunch of required funds still at large. I spent some time farming these slime fish at the bottom of the lake with garlic for their reasonable market price, but still needing more. I moved on to the caves, fishing for quite some time, but it's useless. So many of the catches were 1 star, worth next to nothing. Getting desperate now, I moved back to the outdoor expanse of water, once again grinding these slime fish. So many are 1-star quality as soon as I needed to sell them. They're all worth bum diddly squat. Finally, I landed a 5-star, and look, one of these fish is worth 17 of its 1-star equivalents. You know what? It's fine. I sold them all and purchased my new hat. Excited to give it a go, I tried to land a chicken fish and did so with complete ease. Wait, could this actually be really strong? Arriving at the beach with my drill attached, I headed down to drill, not to fish. So tell me why these dull-witted creatures bite on a literal drill bit. I managed to get to the rocks, discovering a chest hidden behind them. Returning quickly with the magnet attached, this time I brought it to the surface, revealing the Ring of Endless Endurance, the perfect ring for my kit, and officially making it time to take on the Dark Lord. Arriving at the cave in anticipation, I lowered in my hook, intending for a simple reconnaissance mission. Carefully navigating the labyrinth, I found the deepest I had previously gone, a large opening with a statue of the Dark Lord in the middle. Wasting some time catching a mimic, I was straight back to my exploration, finding a photograph of the Light God and the Dark Lord, and along a corridor, I finally found Yazalden himself. Alright, attempt 1. This was simply reconnaissance. Okay, not using any items, but trying to learn the attack patterns. I unfortunately didn't make it far and was defeated. This was when I made the unfortunate discovery that I would need to go all the way down through the maze and dodge the guards to the Lord each time I wanted to face him. The second attempt went much the same, trying to block both the close attacks and the far ones, actually managing to force stage 2, but there was too much going on and I was defeated once again. Okay, returning home, I knew that the fight would be harder, but I had belief in my skills and my equipment. First, I purchased some stamina potions from Greg, then created a plan to just spam spells using them, returning and putting my plan into action. He was bleeding and on fire, expertly parrying each of the special attacks. I quickly got to the stage 2 with almost full health. Keeping my health and energy regeneration at a maximum, I did take some heavy damage, but easily forced stage 3. He was angry now, letting flurries of attacks loose that I was struggling to block, but using my spells and debuffs, his health hit 0. But this just made him angry. Oh, wait, look at the surface. Greg was checking up on his garlic when the 2 muggers appeared. They liked the look of them, running up to do some mugging, dropping them all into the lake below. They sank down, penetrating the Dark Lord's chamber. They were his weakness, and in part due to my efforts, he was defeated once and for all. Thydon placed the scroll back into the chest, and finally let the players rejoin the game. Balin returned to his fisherman self, enjoyed the garlic festival at long last. But look, many achievements still awaited my collection. The first being to catch every single species in 5-star quality. Surely this won't be too hard. right? Checking with the statue, I quantified which fish I still needed, making a short list for the ocean and got to work. First, the leatherfish. It lives right here, an infinite supply of them, but wait, why are none of them 5 stars? I fished and fished and fished until I finally got it, but it took 14 catches to do so. Surely the ones at the bottom of the ocean wouldn't be this hard, right? Completing the coral reef fish, officially it was time for the second layer. I began with the shark, got the 5-star quickly, and starting towards the second shark, filling my inventory before that could happen. I had made so little progress, but was still forced to walk all the way to town and sell everything. I wasn't going to stand for this though, and returning, I gathered up some sand dollars, fossils from deeper down, and finally the ectoplasm, combining them into a portal, taking me straight home. That's the signature red team efficiency. Getting back to fishing, and around 7 hooked sharks later, I had landed the 5-star. Now for the final fish in the area, the elusive Southwind anchovy. Now this fish resides in a small cave and is forever alone. Only one can exist at one time, so I was forced to go all the way down into its cave, bring it back up, and be disappointed by its quality over and over and over and over. My inventory was full. That's right, I caught 17 anchovies in a row and not got a single 5-star. This, more than annoying, was a little terrifying as a foreshadow of my experience completing this achievement. Finishing selling the goods to Fred, I spent some time off, gathering some wood and iron along with some more ectoplasm in order to build a return portal when the time was right. I had no real reason to be scared though, as 2 fish in I secured the 5-star. 1 layer deeper now, I got the wave whisperer straight away, and focusing on the mahi-mahi, I was unfortunately tormented hauling up these mass monsters time and time again. At long last, getting the 5-star after 10 fish. The wolf fish, also in residence, was easy enough to complete, and laying my eyes on the anglerfish, the final one for this depth, I realized my inventory was full. Teleporting home, I was able to build the return trip, now fully locked into completing the beach in its entirety. My luck was great to managing to secure the anglerfish on my very first cast, but now we arrive at the ocean's graveyard. My first target, the 10-eyed fish, which I brought up, was low quality, then had to delve all the way down again, past each layer just to hook the next. Another failure and another failure. This fish, to be honest, took an unfortunate amount of time, but it would be nothing compared to what I would face in the lake. Completing the 10-eyed fish, eventually it was onto the lich fin eel, slightly kinder, and was finished at a satisfactory pace, officially meaning the ocean was completed. I completed 100% of the ocean. There's still much to do, but taking a tactical break, it was time to upgrade the mayor's home. Sinking into the lake, I got some slime. Moving on to the ocean, I gathered fossils and ectoplasm. Finally moving to the caves and securing a soul gem, combining them all to construct the mayor a better residence. You see, another achievement was to complete every mayor quest, beginning with supplying creatures for protection. Okay, I guess. First up was mimics, so arriving at the caves, driving my hook all the way into the maze and grinding these strange animals for some time. A difficult ask, actually, as I needed to navigate the labyrinth, dodge the guards, and as the population dwindled, I found myself going deeper and deeper each time. No 5 stars, but the mission was complete, so moving on to the mystical library, I went for the chicken fish, which amazingly turned out to be 5 stars. Slightly less work now. I also secured the unicorns, enough to satiate the mayor, who gave 2,500 in return. His next task involved building a machine in his basement, requiring obsidian and ectoplasm. Who is this guy? No questions asked. I got the obsidian. While it respawned, I headed to the beach and collected some ectoplasm, doing the same thing one more time in the opposite direction. Man, that right there is real efficiency. I was rewarded handsomely. Again, this time he was asking for various potions in order to host a town potion tasting event. I'm sure this won't end badly. I did need some health potions, trading at Greg's, but requiring a further 20 mushrooms. I gathered them in the looming branches, purchased the remaining potions, and completed the quest. 4,000 in repayment now, moving swiftly onto the fuel required for this basement machine. Sensing his quests would soon come to an end, I finished collecting the required fairies, hooking and landing 3 of the creepy eyeball fish, got the ocean fish too before finally returning to the caves, catching some last fairies and handing everything over. 5,000 now, and his final favor consisted of a bunch of the hardest fish in the game, along with 3 soul gems. This does not put off the alpha though, and with real red TM efficiency, I secured all of the required fish, and while I waited for the soul gems respawning, I decided to go for the 5-star eyeball. This was a tall task, but miraculously, hauling up this fish, it turned out to be 5 stars. On a roll, I turned my sights to a 5-star mimic, resulting in my roll being probably ended. The process is just so long, and I once again admit failure. Still, the 3rd soul gem was ready to collect, so I grabbed it. At long last, completing the final mayor request, getting the mayor's hat, and an achievement. The hat's alright, but more importantly, it's time to get all the lake fish at 5 stars. I began with the herring, easy, done and dusted. Moving on to the snakefish, I was disappointed over and over. I felt I was catching quite a lot of them, actually, until I realized I'd used all all of my garlic. There was a small reserve outside of Greg's shop, and quickly returning to fishing, I caught snakefish after snakefish, pulling them up, and I was out of bait again. It was only after gathering some garlic again and returned to fishing that at long last I secured the 5-star snakefish. But that wasn't the biggest perpetrator. No, that title goes to the grouper. These red twats are very common in the shallow lake and eat pine cones, but for whatever reason refused to be 5 stars. I caught 23 of them without getting a single high quality one. They filled my inventory, and once again, only after selling everything and catching a further 2 did I finally get the 5-star. You know, assuming each quality has an equal chance, what just occurred has a 1.1% chance of happening. I was aghast, but that wasn't even the worst of it. I was onto the level 2 fish now, unfortunately starting the Trat, who also ate garlic. As such, I soon ran out, being forced to harvest some more before continuing this torture. And torture it was. My inventory was full again. The second fish here is 5-star, and the rest of the 24 aren't. Swapping temporarily to the rose brace for mental fortitude, I actually got it straight away, and faith slightly restored in this game. I gathered even more garlic, threw in my line, and finally caught the 5-star trout. Moving quickly onwards, it's time for the pike, and I'd say it was also impossible, but that's getting a little old. So I'll just say I grabbed more garlic, kept fishing for some time, and eventually got the 5-star. Now I had 2 left, the gar of Gradok and the catfish. First aiming for the gar, who lived at the bottom, but always keeping an eye out for the catfish, as it was a very slow spawner and may take a decade to complete. My inventory was full again though, so selling everything, I finally found the 5-star gar, meaning I was done with the first 2 levels except for the damn catfish. Strapping in for the long haul, throwing in my line, and on the second cast I secured the fish I was looking for. Things were looking up. Heading down to the deeper sections, I got the eel done pretty quickly, hooking a big meat shield fish and completing that on the first try. I was flying through it. My luck had finally turned around, and although the tunnel head did take some time, when my inventory filled again, I had made some significant progress. This didn't last long though, and after fishing and fishing for the dagger tooth, I did get the 5-star, but what I'd been dreading had arrived. It was time for the mystical library. I needed the slimy snail first, which ate mushrooms, so heading to the tree of life, I grinded some, 20 to be exact. That's a whole lot of mushrooms. Surely it'll be enough. I got to work sinking all the way to the bottom of the lake, locating one of the snails and fighting it all the way back. Midway through this escapade, reaching the achievement for the maximum level and fishing over and over, sinking down, hooking and bringing it up so many times the casts seemed to blend into each other. I had run out of bait. I'd caught 20 snails in a row and not gotten a single 5-star. You know what? That's bad luck. Begrudgingly, I returned to the tree of life, where I secured even more bait, continuing my fishing efforts until my inventory was full. 25 snails, not a single 5-star. As I returned to the tree of life and gathered more mushrooms, I began to wonder if the game was bugged. I was proven incorrect, luckily, and after a few more catches, I'd gotten the 5-star slimy snail. And okay, once again, assuming an equal chance of all qualities, what just happened had a 0.123% chance of occurring. Just incomprehensible. Next was the pistol perch, which wanted fairies, so collecting some in the mines, I managed to secure the 5-star after only a few casts, as it should be. And with that, the entire lake was completed. Only the cave remains. It's time for a well-deserved break though. You see, I wanted to fully complete the village. Step 1 involved getting some wood and stone from the shallow lake, sinking deeper now to secure some slime, quickly moving onto the cave, where I gathered obsidian, soul gems, along with some pure crystals accumulated so I could upgrade Greg's shop. I was already out of resources though, so I once again grabbed a slime from the lake and a soul gem from the labyrinth. I purchased Willow's store upgrade, completing the town in its entirety. Now, at this point, I also had quite a lot of money from grinding the 5-stars, and seeing as I needed every rod, every hat, and every ring, and every necklace, I got started by purchasing all the rods Bodger had for sale. I didn't get the achievement though, which meant there was still some down in the depths that I was yet to secure. Exploring, keeping my eyes peeled for chests, I found some cobblestone that I was yet to breaking them with the drill, returning with the magnet, and bringing the beautiful bounty up, turning out to be the high sorcerer's rod. Still no achievement though, so moving on to the caves, I spent some time swimming through the labyrinth, eventually finding some cobble near the maze. Coming back with the drill, there you go, there's a chest in there, and returning with the magnet, bringing it up and opening it, it contained the Excalibur, rewarding me with the achievement. Alright, step 2 was all the hats. Unfortunately, my funds were low enough not to be able to purchase everything, so in need of funds, I decided to make a start on collecting the 5-stars was in the caves. Starting with the Skella tuna that was completed quickly, moving on to the headless fish, and after only a few casts, got to the 5-star beheaded barracuda. It seemed to me that my luck was once again changing. Next up, the crystal grotto, the sapphire salmon down here, bringing it up and done. That's quite a lot of fish. So returning and selling everything, it wasn't enough though. So returning quickly, I set my sights on the goldfish of Rahul. Unfortunately, it spawns really slowly, so ignoring it for now, I instead started to hook some emerald emperors, significantly easier thanks to my overpowered gear, and although it took 10 entire fish hauled to the surface, I eventually completed it. Back to the goldfish now. Once again, I hate them. They filled my inventory without providing one single 5-star. I was used to it though, selling everything and being able to purchase the final hat from Eugene, getting the achievement. Now, finally, all I needed was the jewelry, significantly more expensive than the hats and rods. A large amount of funds still outstanding, I finally managed to land the 5-star goldfish, officially completing the crystal grotto, and moving on to the lava core. My first target was the catfish, and while moving these massive creatures, I actually realized there was an audio cue for the perfect parry. The more you know. Anyways, these catfish were a real pain, taking so long to get to the surface thanks to their massive weight. Now, for the catfish in particular, a level 27 corresponded to a 5-star, so I was happy to finally find one, landing it, then selling everything from my inventory. Curious on my progress, I checked the collection with the statue, realizing I needed mushrooms for another one of the fish, hoping this wouldn't be a repeat of the last time I needed mushrooms. I grinded for a bunch, 20 in total. That's a lot. Surely it'll be enough. The fish in question was the magma mullet, arguably the easiest fish in the lava core, and apparently the biggest op to my mental state. You see, it took 15 fish to get a 4-star. That's right. I was in for a rough ride, and using the rest of my 20 bait, of course, I came away empty-handed. Needing a quick break, I gathered some more bait from the top branches, selling all the fish in my inventory and using the funds to purchase a couple more rings, leaving 5 of the more expensive ones still to buy. Alright, time to get back to the grind. I had plenty of bait now and preparing to crash out if I ran out again. I fished and I fished disappointment after disappointment, and finally, after 11 additional casts, I got the 5-star. 36 fish in total. What are we doing here? The finish line was in sight though, so continuing onwards to the fire fin, I caught only a couple and quickly got the 5-star. And finally, for the lava core was the obsidian oxeye, which after only 3 catches was the required quality. Maybe my luck was returning. These were expensive fish too, so selling them all, I bought one more ring. All that remained was the mimic, the elder woefish, the gloomy lantern, and the shade skipper. Shade skipper up first. On the second cast I got it. 3 left. The first mimic I hooked, I brought it to the surface and it was 5 stars. 2 left now. The gloomy lantern hooking the first one I saw, I brought it to the surface and it was 5 stars. Only 1 fish remained for this achievement, the elder woefish, living alone in the very middle of the labyrinth. This would be a grind. I had to go all the way down through the maze and dodge the eyeball guards each and every time, but still with an iron will. After only 6 rotations of doing this, I bought up the fish and completed the achievement. I was so close selling them all, I bought 1 more ring, leaving only 3 remaining. It was time to get a load of funds, and as much as it sounded counterproductive, I decided the fastest route to do so was catch the elder woefish. You see, as much as they did live in the middle of the maze, even a 3-star was worth 1,000 gold and a 5-star was worth a massive 3 bands. Catching a couple though, I decided there must be a better way of getting down there. So descending with the drill, I explored every nook and cranny, but failed to locate a shortcut. That was fine. I just spent half an hour or so sinking into the maze, completing it, hooking the elder woefish and bringing it up over and over. When I was finally happy, I returned, selling them for 16 grand and purchasing 2 more pieces of jewelry. Now, with only 2,000 remaining, I just fished in the lake, catching a couple of unicorn fish, selling them, and at long last, buying the final necklace, getting 2 achievements. Wait, there was still 1 more. An easy achievement that I should have gotten a long time ago. It was to lose a battle against the easiest fish in the game. So, I threw in my line and waited. Thank you all so much for watching. Please do consider subscribing if you enjoyed. I would greatly appreciate it. Comment a game if you want me to play. Oh, the line snapped. I got the achievement, and the game was completed.